So I'm going to just start off by saying wash your hands before you start playing, for obvious reasons. I think I'll use this violin. When you first start playing, you need to tighten up the bow. Don't over-tighten it. This is something that a lot of people make the mistake of doing. And then the curve will go in your bow. Also, if it's put under too much tension, it may warp and it may actually break at the thinnest point, which is up here. So you need to be careful with that. Imagine this is a pencil. This is the pencil test. So you put a pencil in the middle. This is a little bit wider than a pencil, actually, to be honest. If it falls out, then it's too tight. You pull the bow too tight and you need to loosen it off a bit. Obviously, when you put the bow away, you loosen the hair off. That's important as well. You also need to rosin the bow. I will be recording a separate video on different types of rosin and also how to apply the rosin to your bow, etc. Rosin your bow and then you play your violin. After you have played your violin, it's important for you to remove the rosin from the varnished areas. This is because the rosin can damage your violin if it's left on for too long. The best way of doing this, I'm just going to sit down for this and show you. You need to actually clean underneath the fingerboard and also on top of the fingerboard, so you need quite a thin cloth for this. A lot of people like these microfiber cloths. I don't actually like them very much. And I find them a bit bulky for this task, but you might like, a lot of people like them. I don't like them, I think they're plastic, kind of, but a lot of people do like them, and they've got a brush kind of feeling to them, so that might be a good choice. So you remove the rosin there, and then you go down here and you remove the rosin also underneath the chin rest and underneath the tail piece. Just be careful that you haven't got any rosin anywhere else as well, like that. You also need to remove it from the strings. Your strings will sound better without if you remove the rosin from them, otherwise there'll be rosin build-up on them, so you need to clean them. They'll sound better and they'll last longer. Also, of course, you need to clean the chin rest. Now, you might need to use a damp cloth for that, but obviously it's in contact with your chin, so you do need to keep that clean, and here as well. If you want to clean it a little bit more thoroughly, you can use something like this product, which is to shine up your violin a bit and clean it a little bit more thoroughly. I have come across some videos on the internet suggesting that you can use olive oil. Please don't use olive oil or any other product that's not meant for violins. It's not worth the risk of damaging your violin, really. And also, some oils can actually damage the glue that your violin is glued together with. You can use something like this. I would say every sort of 6 months to a year, I use something like this. Put a very small amount on a cloth and wipe it all over the violin. So let's just do that now. Just use a very small amount on the cloth and rub it onto the varnish to clean it. And it will come up nice and shiny, which is lovely. But you only use a very tiny amount. So I only do this every 6 to 12 months, but some people do it more frequently. It's really up to you. But please use the right stuff. You can also brush out some dust from the paint box if you want to with a soft brush. I just use a makeup brush for that, just to get some of the dust out. That's the outside of the violin. What do you do with the inside of the violin? Have you thought about the inside? Now, if you have a very old violin, you might even have cobwebs inside. Certainly, over time, we have a build-up of dust in violins, and you'll notice after a while you'll hear this little rattling sound. It's probably what we call a dust bunny, just a little clump of dust that's rolling around inside your violin. So to get that out and to clean inside your violin, what we use is rice. Up to a couple of tablespoons, and then you pour it into your violin very carefully, like this, into one of the holes. It needs to be white rice, because white rice is a bit more absorbent than brown rice. And then you shake it around a little bit. And then you shake all the rice out. It might take you a little while to get all the rice out. Okay, we'll leave it to that at that for the moment. Okay, other maintenance issues that you have to think about. Your bridge. Now, your bridge needs to be totally vertical at all times, but over time you might find that it moves. Usually it'll move towards the fingerboard. Occasionally it will move the other way, but most often it will move towards the pegs, simply because you're tightening up the strings. It's more likely that strings will go loose over time and go flat, so you will be tightening them up and making them sharper. And when that happens, there's a lot of rice inside. It does take a while to get it out. You put your thumbs here and then you push gently and move the bridge back up into its vertical position. Or if it's gone the other way, then you push it that way from your tailpiece. So that's important to look out for. Also, from time to time, make sure that your sound post is still in the same position and it's still upright. If it's not, then, well, it will be rattling around inside the violin, I'm sure you'll notice. You will have to take it to a luthier if that happens, so that it can be put up again. They have a special instrument to raise the sound post and also to put it in the right place. It needs to be in exactly the right place on the violin. Another thing that you need to look out for is over time your fine adjusters will not move clockwise anymore. The chances are, again, as I said, your strings will go flat over time. They will loosen off rather than tighten up by themselves. Occasionally they don't, but usually they do. So that means that you will keep moving your fine adjusters to the point where there's no more play in them. So when that happens, you need to loosen them off and then move the peg instead, so that you can get more play in your fine adjusters. I would say it's a good idea to check on this about once a year. When you do this, it's a great opportunity to put some peg paste on your peg if it's stiff. This one comes in a tin. It's called Hidder paste, which is the one I use. You use a very small amount. It's just paste to put on your peg. And it makes it so much easier to move when you need to tune it. There are also versions of this that look a bit like a lipstick that you can put on as well. You use a very small amount, and so whenever you change a string as well, you can use the opportunity to put a little bit of this on. Also, it's a good idea to have a spare set of strings available, so that if you break one, then you're able to actually replace it quite easily and quickly without the inconvenience of having to wait for a new set to arrive or a new string to arrive. If you want to replace the whole of your strings, all your strings, then you need to replace one at a time, because if you take them all off, then the bridge will fall down and possibly the sound post will move as well. Still rice in here. Just a couple of grains. The feet on your shoulder rest, over time, can actually harden off because they're rubber, and occasionally they'll start rubbing against your violin. So if you use a shoulder rest, then make sure that you check that every now and again. Make sure there's no rubbing against your violin, because that could damage it. The ideal temperature, 60 to 70 Fahrenheit, and a humidity of between 40 and 60 degrees relative to the temperature. I keep a little temperature guide and a humidity guide just to check to make sure that that's correct. When you're putting your bow away in the violin case, do be careful with it, because sometimes the hairs get caught on the clip here. So you do need to be careful, especially when you're taking the bow out, that you don't break off some of the bow hair. Just be aware of that. And another issue is pet hair and dust inside your case. Obviously I've got rice inside my case, you wouldn't keep that there. I use a mini one of these little rollers to actually get the dust out of my case and make sure that there isn't anything that's going to be scratching against my violin when I take it travelling. And also it's a good idea to have something like a scarf to wrap it in. Don't leave anything loose in the case that rattles around, because it may scratch your violin. These might be obvious things to you, but I'm just mentioning them in case you haven't thought about them. Obviously don't keep your violin in the sun or near a radiator, even when it's in it can get damaged. Pet hair is a common problem with all musical instruments. It tends to get wound round inside and around the fine adjusters and inside the instrument and in the peg box as well. So it's a good idea to keep pets away when you're playing your violin and try and keep them out of the space where you practice, if possible. There are really serious problems with wind instruments because, of course, there's moving mechanism. It's not quite as problematic with a violin, but it is still something that I see lots of pet hair wound around the pegs and everything. That's also something to look out for. So I hope that was helpful.